review the Royal Rumble from last night in about 10 or so minutes. Let's do it. Alright, so on the pre-show, we had the Raw Women's Tag Team Championships defended, but they're defended on both brands, but let's face it, they're the Raw Women's Tag Team Championships. Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax challenged the current champion, Charlotte and Asuka, and Charlotte and Asuka, of course, lost, because they need a way to split up eventually and fight at WrestleMania for the Raw Women's Championship. Because let's be honest, Charlotte's like the only main event player besides Asuka right now, except for the fact that easily Shayna and Becky could make a bigger main event picture, but the Women's Tag Team Championships are very important. At least they're trying to make them important. They should be, but they're really not. As well, to add to the current storyline of Lacey Evans and Charlotte Flair, Lacey Evans and Charlotte's dad, Ric Flair, came out to the ring to distract Charlotte and, of course, cost them the championships, because, of course, they do. The match overall was okay. It was a fine pre-show match, but it didn't really do anything for me. I mostly just played on my phone and listened to a live stream. Now, moving on from the pre-show, we had the first match of the night, technically in the Royal Rumble, which was Drew McIntyre versus Goldberg for the WWE Championship. Now, if you've been watching the WWE for the past few years, you will know that Goldberg has a habit of coming out of retirement every year and just seemingly waltzing in and getting a WWE Championship. Now, it's been a theme the past few years, and most of the matches haven't been very good. In fact, Goldberg really only works 2 matches a year, as those are what his contracts are based on. So he usually defends it, and then loses it again. It really stinks, but thank goodness we didn't have to go through that again, as Drew McIntyre beat Goldberg in about 5 minutes. The match was basically just claymores and spears, and that's mostly it. Because Goldberg really can't do anything. No offense, but he's way too old to still be wrestling in the main event picture. Drew McIntyre won in a convincing fashion after hitting multiple claymores and kicking out of a spear and a jackhammer, so that was kind of cool. So, overall, match was fine. Gets an extra boost because Goldberg didn't win. Duh! No respect to the legend, though, but he needs to retire quietly now. At the end, they had a nice moment where they shook hands and hugged, so hopefully maybe that's the end of Goldberg as an active wrestler. After that, we moved on and had the SmackDown Women's Championship match, Carmella versus Sasha Banks. Now, this was basically a redo of their TLC match from December, and it wasn't as good as the TLC match, but it was still alright, had some nice spots. Sasha Banks is getting so good in the ring that she actually made Carmella entertaining. The match had some pretty good high spots, including good involvement from Reginald, and obvious good commentating from Corey Graves as him and Carmella are in a real-life relationship. Carmella actually had a pretty scary dive in the match, which was kind of crazy. She landed right on her head, turned into a human scorpion, thought she paralyzed herself. Got right back up, though, so that was fine. Sasha looked great as always. It was a fine match. Really didn't do anything for me, but, it wasn't bad. So, it was a good SmackDown Championship match, and the show was off to a pretty good start so far. And then we moved on to the Women's Royal Rumble match. Easily, in my opinion, probably match of the night. Started off with the good number 1 and number 2. You had Bayley come in at number 1, and then you had Naomi return at number 2. Which was a welcome sight. Now, we haven't seen Naomi in a long time. She's been out about as long as Jimmy Uso has, a little bit longer. So it was really nice to see her come back. She actually lasted 40 minutes from the number 2 spot in the match. Really, really impressive. Bayley was number 1. She ended up going about 30 minutes, but ended up getting eliminated by the winner of the match, Bianca Belair, who entered at number 3. We all wanted Bianca to win the match, but, with the way that things have been going, we didn't think it was going to happen, especially when Charlotte entered at number 15. We were all like, oh boy, here we go. And Charlotte being in the final 3. We were all just convinced that this was going to happen. That Charlotte was going to go back-to-back and, whatever. But she didn't, thank goodness. Rhea Ripley was a nice surprise. She was a part of the final 2 of the match, and she really put on a nice performance. She looked stiff. She was just hitting everyone with massive shots. Some really devastating moves, so Rhea looked very, very good. As well, we had most of the match was a bunch of NXT superstars and legends because the Raw Women's Division And the SmackDown Women's Division really isn't that big. I think it was about 14 confirmed superstars for the Women's Royal Rumble. So it was mostly NXT and alumni. So you had, Tori Wilson, Victoria, which was really cool. Victoria lasted like 15 or 20 minutes, so that was cool. She had a nice Royal Rumble. So you had Victoria in there. Tori Wilson, like I said. Jillian Hall, which was just... and I think there were a lot more legends, but those are the ones that come off the top of my head. And then for NXT superstars, you had Dakota Kai, Rhea Ripley, tons more. Yeah, there are a bunch more, but those are the ones that kind of stick out. Billie Kay did a really great comedy bid throughout the whole thing, where she just kind of was looking for someone to team up with the whole time, which led to her getting dissed by Shayna Baszler, and a bunch of other people until Jillian Hall actually came out and formed a tag team of Billy and Jilly, which made me cry. Because, let's face it, Jillian Hall is awful, and Billie Kay is doing some really phenomenal character work right now. That didn't last too long, as the Iconics were formed and then split up again. So, there you go. All in all, it was a very, very, very good Women's Royal Rumble match. Bianca Belair, who should have won last year, but obviously Charlotte won last year, put on an incredible show, and really looked strong. Had a lot of close calls in the match, but she really pulled it off, and I couldn't be more happy for her. A lot of people are just so proud of her, and it really, really was a phenomenal match. She did an incredible job. The whole match was perfect. There were some spots, but other than that, it was a really solid Royal Rumble match. It was easily the best Women's Royal Rumble match we've ever had. But I'd put it up there as one of the best Royal Rumbles in general. It really, really was a great, great showing from everybody involved. And then we move on to the Universal Championship match. Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens. So we ended up having a pretty good Universal Championship, a great last man standing match in general. It looked really, really good throughout the whole thing. Roman obviously came out with Paul Heyman, and Kevin Owens came out alone. I think one of the most shocking elements to the match was the surprising lack of Jey Uso. In fact, he wasn't in the match at all. He didn't even enter with Roman. He didn't have anything to do with the match, and it was mostly just Roman and Kevin going at it, which was really an interesting thing to see, because you would have easily thought Heyman, Jey, and we all thought that Jimmy Uso was going to come back and join the head of the table and his brother and, that whole thing. But no, it didn't happen. There was no Jey Uso at all, and it was really just a clean match in general. Some really good spots. Kevin Owens got thrown off the third or fourth tier of the Thunderdome crowd through some tables. That was really good. There were two spots on the same announce table. One was a pop-up powerbomb from Kevin Owens that Roman did not go through the table, and then he ended up climbing a ladder and did a frog splash through it. And then Kevin Owens climbed a forklift and did a swanton bomb through a set of plywood to Roman Reigns. So that was an incredible spot. And probably the best spot of the match was Kevin Owens had stumbled back through the gorilla area, back into the main area of the Tropicana. And I think he was in right field. And then Roman Reigns just comes out of nowhere and steamrolls right through him with the golf cart. Made me laugh a little bit. It was like, where did Roman come from? But he absolutely just drills Kevin at like full speed. He goes through the plexiglass thing. It's a out of nowhere spot, and it was really a cool thing. And then eventually they made it back to the main stage. And they pulled a Gargano Ciampa 2, where Kevin got a set of handcuffs, locked up Roman, and basically, we were out to see new Universal Champion because Roman couldn't stand up because he locked him to the bottom part of the light tower. Eventually, we needed a ref bump to stop the count, so Roman grabs the ref by his shirt and throws him into a lighting rig, and about decapitates the ref. The ref looked legitimately knocked out, and it was a pretty scary spot. It was vicious. Afterwards, the spot was, Paul Heyman runs in with the key, and we unlock Roman. However, the spot took way too long. They couldn't get the cuffs undone. It was an obvious botch. The spot was supposed to take maybe 5 seconds to get Roman out. It took about a minute and a half to get Roman off the bottom of the light tower. Completely killed all the momentum in the match. It was just awkward. They literally didn't know what to do. Just keep the camera on Paul and Roman trying to uncouple the handcuffs, but other than that, they really didn't. The spot was really bad, and it just killed the whole match in general. The other ref came out, and he stopped counting midway through. The end of the match was really bad. It ruined what was a really, really good last man standing match. So Roman ended up getting out of the shackles eventually, and ended the match with a guillotine, and that was it. I really thought we were going to see a couple more minutes and a massive spot to end it, but just a guillotine choke on the floor and 10 count, and Kevin couldn't get up, so Roman retained. End of the match completely killed the momentum with the botched finish. But other than that, the match before that was really, really good. But so far in the night, the Women's Royal Rumble still stood tall, but I put the Universal Championship match at second over the note. Even with the bad finish, it was a really good match. And now we finally get to talk about the Men's Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble that everyone was talking about. Edge at number 1, Randy at number 2. We know they're going to fight each other. How is this going to go down? What's the spot going to be? Who's going to win? We knew that Daniel Bryan was the heavy favorite, but you also had Big E, who everyone wanted to win. Shinsuke, who everyone wanted to win. Cesaro, who had some really good momentum coming into it. Even a returning Braun Strowman was all of a sudden a favorite to notch in, because he was going to get the number 30 spot. Edge came out, had a big entrance. Randy's music hits. Edge doesn't even let him get to the ring. They brawl on the outside for a little bit. Match starts. They do some spots in the ring. Tumble to the outside, do some spots with the announce table. And Randy gets kayfabe injured. Edge gets his knee, and Randy ends up being have to escorted to the back for later in the match to kayfabe say, wait, Edge didn't win yet. Randy was never eliminated, kind of thing. So the numbers 3 through 5 come, and it's nothing special. It's Ali, Ziggler, and one more. They come in, and then Jeff Hardy comes in to help. Eventually, we get through the Rumble, and we get to the later spots. It's pretty cool. We get some pretty interesting surprise entrants. We got Carlito to return, and he's actually having a match on Raw as we speak. So that was really cool to see Carlito come back. We all thought that he was actually going to make the appearance at Raw Legends Night when they had that show. However, that turned out to be not the case at all. And it was a thing where Carlito actually confirmed that he was never actually booked for Raw Legends Night. It was just a big miscommunication backstage, as well as the case of some other legends that were slated to appear but did not. But that show was a whole mess. So it was really good to see Carlito back. He did a really nice job in the Rumble, hit a backstabber. Unfortunately, didn't get to spit in the face of people who did not want to be cool. Obviously, COVID going around. And even though everyone gets tested, still probably not sanitary to do and not good to promote that on television right now. Spitting in people's faces is definitely not something you should be doing right now. As well, big Royal Rumble storyline was not only Mia Yim, unfortunately, the day of the Rumble, tested positive for COVID-19. So that eliminated her. She was going to be in the Women's Royal Rumble match. As well, that eliminated Keith Lee from participating in the Royal Rumble match. Don't know if he was slated to be in there originally, but he actually contracted COVID as well. So unfortunately, neither of them were able to compete in their respective Royal Rumbles. So that might have messed up the Rumble a little bit. But I thought both of the Rumbles went fine either way. They were both still really, really, really good Royal Rumbles. So we had Carlito, we had the Hurricane, but, I mean, it's the Hurricane. It's nice to see him, but he just was there for a comedy bit, and then he got thrown out. We had Seth Rollins return, which was really nice to see Seth back, finally. Most likely going to SmackDown to take on Roman, probably, because Edge is most likely going to choose Drew to take on at WrestleMania. So possibly a Seth versus Roman WrestleMania, but that would involve turning Seth face. And Seth's been heel for a while. He's doing some really, really good heel work right now. So we might see that, but it's very unlikely. And then the big Royal Rumble return of the night, in my opinion, was Christian. Whoa! He's been out for 7 years. What's Christian doing here? Really good feel-good moment. Came out of nowhere. Nobody expected to see Captain Charisma there. Because we didn't think he was doing anything. Earlier in the year, he did a thing with Randy Orton where he got punted off of TV. But cleared, obviously, to compete in the Rumble, and he came in, and he looked really good. He was part of the Final Four, actually. Which was a big complaint I think a lot of people have about the Rumble, is because our picks to be in the Rumble the longest, Daniel Bryan, Big E, and Shinsuke, all three were eliminated within the span of 5 minutes and weren't even in the final 10. So a really disappointing thing about that. Also, AJ Styles, who we also all thought had a really, really good shot, was also eliminated early. So that aspect was kind of a sour thing. So that was unfortunate. As well, a lot of people weren't happy with Omos's involvement in the match. He was responsible for 2 eliminations. He was responsible for the elimination of Big E, and I believe he was responsible for the elimination of Rey Mysterio. So 2 eliminations of 2 big superstars, and that really didn't kind of sit well with a lot of people, because Omos really was just supposed to be there to help AJ and kind of be the guy that was like, whoa, AJ's getting knocked down, I gotta help him back in. But he actually eliminated superstars himself, so that really didn't sit well with a lot of people. So the Final Four ended up being Seth, Braun, Christian, and Edge, which was a really interesting Final Four that I don't think anybody saw coming. Bobby Lashley, who also we picked to be very late in the Rumble match, was eliminated too. So that kind of sucked. The aspect that we thought a lot of people that were going to be in the Final Four of the Rumble weren't even close to being in the Final Four. As well, from NXT, we had Damian Priest, and Matt Riddle had a really, really nice performance. He lasted over 30 minutes, so he had a really, really nice Royal Rumble showing. So that was nice to see. The men's Royal Rumble really wasn't full of returns and surprises this year, but that's okay. It was supposed to be a Rumble of surprises, and there were some good surprises, especially in the Women's Royal Rumble. The Men's Rumble was really just a good cut-and-dry Rumble. Really wasn't special, but it was a good Rumble match in general. It was also a good follow-up to the Last Man Standing match, because a match that pertains mostly only in the ring, as a Rumble does, was really good because we had a match before it that was all outside the ring in a Last Man Standing. So both of them balanced out really, really nicely. Great contrast. Final Four, you had Christian and Braun get eliminated simultaneously. And then you had Seth and Edge. Seth hit the curb stomp, tried to get Edge out of there. They had kind of a struggle. Edge get the elimination. We all think Edge is going to win the Rumble, and then out of absolute nowhere, Randy Orton hits an RKO on Edge. He just showed up, tries to throw Edge over, Edge reverses, wins the Royal Rumble match. So technically, if you want to count it, there was a Final 5 this year because Christian and Braun were both taken out at the exact same time. So there really wasn't a true Final Four this year because of Randy Orton just kind of coming out of nowhere. However, it didn't shy away. Edge entered the Royal Rumble at number 1 and won the whole thing. Super impressive performance. Just also a really cool moment. Edge comes back after another long injury. He was out for almost 8 or 9 months. And he comes back and he wins the Royal Rumble in a really convincing fashion. I think, as much as we wanted Daniel Bryan or Big E to win or something, it was really cool that Edge ended up winning. So that was an awesome aspect of it. So overall, I thought the Royal Rumble this year was really good. The main men's Royal Rumble match was good. If I'd have to rate matches, I'd put Women's Royal Rumble, Men's Royal Rumble, Universal Championship, SmackDown Women's Championship, WWE Championship, and the Raw Women's Tag Team Championship. As well, we had the 24/7 championship defended and changed hands throughout the night. It actually changed hands during the women's Royal Rumble match. Alicia Fox was champion for a minute. Alicia Fox returned as well. So there's another one in the women's match. We also saw Mickie James. See, now they're all coming to me. So we had that. Yeah, so the 24/7 championship bounced around a little bit. R-Truth, who we all thought was going to leave with the championship, actually lost it to David Rosenberg, who is still the champion. As of right now, I don't believe there has been a title change. I don't think R-Truth has won it back yet, or someone else has won it yet. Or Peter Rosenberg, I'm sorry, Peter. So R-Truth has not won it back yet, but he'll probably win it back by the end of the week. So there's that, and that's pretty much all the Royal Rumble had to offer this year. I have to rate it was a good pay-per-view in general. I thought it was a good first pay-per-view of 2021, and I'd have to say that I was very pleased with the show. Overall, I'd probably give it 5 Screaming Edge faces out of 7 Randy Orton RKOs. So, yeah, that's the scale I'm grading on this year. If you don't like it, sue me. So that's it. It was a good match. Let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. I'd like to start some conversations and see what other people thought. But, anyways, that was the Men's Royal Rumble match this year, guys. Like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you've been here for a while, thank you. And let's try to hit 100 subscribers by the end of February. Let's see if we can do it. Alright, guys. Peace out. Be well.